Morning, Kid One primary, second, and third graders. This is your science class with Mr. Jennings. Nice you guys joined in. So, in this lesson, we're going to be using the knowledge of inheritance traits to evaluate models of inheritance. So, this is just a review kind of our last lesson. We're going to read the book Handbook of Traits and see if we can get some more information from the things that we've read. So, in our last lesson, what we did was we went to our PowerPoint and we had a big question. And our big question has been, how do organisms get their traits? And we learned that organisms get their traits from their parents. So whenever an organism, whatever make them look, those observable traits that they have or those observable characteristics, they all come from their parents. Even with us, our characteristics come from our parents. So the scientists of Yellowstone National Park are trying to figure out which family Wolf 44 belongs to. Wolf 44 hunts with the Elk Mountain pack, but looks more like the wolves in the Bison family pack. So we had the four different claims that we could have chose from with A, B, C, or D from your exit ticket. It was inheritance model number 1 is correct because Wolf 44 hunts and lives with the Elk Mountain pack. B, inheritance model number 1 is correct because Wolf 44 has the same physical traits as the parents in the Elk Mountain family tree. Option C, inheritance model 2 is correct because Wolf 44 hunts and lives with the Bison Valley pack. Or D, inheritance model number 2 is correct because Wolf 44 has the same physical traits as the parents in the Bison family tree. And then, so we moved on. We've seen our word bank, some of the different vocabulary words we've been learning about: environment, trait, evidence, offspring, family tree, DNA, model, inherit, are all words that could have been used for us to understand which one of these families that the Wolf 44 comes from, either the Elk Mountain pack or the Bison family pack. So when we seen the Elk Mountain pack, we seen that most of the wolves were a darker color. We see the mom and dad with Wolf 40 and Wolf 48. We seen all of Wolf 44, the siblings, his brothers and sisters, and they were all darker colored, while Wolf 44 was a lighter colored wolf. And our big question at the beginning of our unit, when we first talked about the wolves, is why is Wolf 44 a different color, a lighter gray, than the other wolves? We've already figured out that the traits of a offspring or a child has to come from its parents. So does Wolf 44 look like any of its two parents in this model? The answer is no. Both of those wolves have darker gray or darker colored fur, while Wolf 44 has a lighter gray fur. So what we did last lesson was put Wolf 44 inside of the family tree with the Bison Valley pack. And we can see Wolf 60 and Wolf 66, the mom and the dad of the Bison family pack and the offspring of the Bison family pack. And we see that all of these wolves have lighter gray color, just like Wolf 44. If you look at Wolf 60, the mom, and Wolf 44, they have the almost the same similar colored fur, that lighter gray fur. And we see the other wolves have fur that is similar to Wolf 44 and the mom and the dad. So like Wolf 61 has colored fur like Wolf 60. Wolf 62 has a mixture of the both. Wolf 63 has a mixture of the both. Wolf 64 has fur like Wolf 66. Wolf 67 has fur like Wolf 60. And Wolf 44 has fur like Wolf 60. So from our reasoning, when we got to our reasoning piece, we know that Wolf 44 must be a part of this Bison Valley family inheritance model. We know this because the other wolves in the Elk Mountain family pack that Wolf 44 lives with has a different colored fur. So we had come to the conclusion that Wolf 44 might have been lost. We have to figure out more, but he might have been lost. They might have found him. Maybe his mom and dad were too fast and they left him behind. Whatever the case may be, Wolf 44 ended up with the Elk Mountain pack because maybe it got lost or they saved him, because Wolf 44 actually belongs in the Bison family pack. So Moving on, we're going to go to the handbook of traits and see what is some information that we can use to understand more about different animals and how they inherit different traits. And so we'll just read a couple pages. We'll start with the beginning. So, introduction. All organisms have a wide variety of traits. Some of these traits are easy to observe, like color, shape, and size. Some traits might be harder to observe, like an organism's behavior or lifestyle. Traits can even include things that are inside an organism, like how its bones are shaped or what its cells are like. All organisms on Earth are related, but they are all different. There is a lot of variation. Remember, variation means differences or difference among organisms. If you compare a tomato plant and a giraffe, you will observe a lot of variation. Their traits are very different. A tomato is very different from a giraffe, although they are both living organisms. Organisms of the same species have most of the same traits as each other. Still, there's a variation even among the individual organisms in one species. If you compare two giraffes, you will still observe variations. One giraffe might be taller or have darker spots. So even though we see variation with a tomato and a giraffe because they are very different organisms, two giraffes still have differences as well. So even though they might have a lot of similarities, they might have a lot of variation as well, like one being taller, having darker spots or different shapes. So we still can see variations in different type of organisms. Um, Organisms of the same species have most of the same traits as each other. Still, there's a variation among individual organisms in one species. If you compare two giraffes, you will still observe variations. One giraffe might be taller or have darker spots. Organisms inherit instructions for traits from their parents. This means that offspring, which are children, usually have traits that are similar to their parents' traits. Parents and offspring have more traits in common than other organisms in the same species. This isn't the whole story, though. An organism's traits can be influenced by its environment. This means an organism will be usually more like the other members of species living in the same environment than like those in a different environment. This book is about 20 different species of organisms and their traits. Here's what here is what is in each entry. So the common name for the species, information about what the species is like, more about traits and variations in the species, a diagram showing the life cycle of a species. So let's move on and see here. The bottlenose dolphin. Bottlenose dolphins live in the ocean all over the world. They have long bodies with two side fins and one top fin. They are gray in color. The biggest ones can be twice as long as a tall person. So think of like us, if a tall person like Mr. Solly, it is as long as two Mr. Sollys. Even though they live in the water, dolphins breathe air. They have big brains and are very smart. So this is some of the characteristics of dolphins. They're very smart and they can breathe air. So unlike most things that live in the water, a dolphin can come out of the water for longer periods of time because it can also breathe air. At the bottom, this is the life cycle of a dolphin. So we see birth. This is when it's the baby. It grows up, turns to a young dolphin. Then it gets older, turns to an adult dolphin, and it reproduces to have a baby to start over again before it dies. Variation in species. Bottlenose dolphin has variations in size and color. The dolphin in some groups are larger than dolphins in other groups. Bottlenose dolphins also have different sized beaks and fins. The genes that give instruction for these traits are passed from their parents to offspring. So this is just what we've been learning about. Parents pass down those different traits to their children. Another way that bottom-nosed dolphins vary is that each one has its own special whistle. Dolphins can tell each other apart by their whistle. So it's just like us, our voices, although we all can talk, all people can talk, our voices sound different. Bottlenose dolphins are similar. Their whistles that they speak with all are different from each other, and that's how they know who is talking because of the whistle sound. Brain coral. Brain coral are animals that live in a warm ocean water. They form heads or rounded shapes that look like brains. Each head of brain coral is made of tiny animals that build a big skeleton for themselves. Brain corals have small plant-like organisms called algae living inside them. The algae help the coral animals get what they need to live and grow. Some brain corals can live as long as 900 years. So these things can live almost 1,000 years. So being 1,000 years old. These brain corals show variations in color and shape. This is the life cycle of a brain coral. So it's a floating coral. It grows up to be a young coral. Grows again, be a young coral. Grows adult coral. It reproduces. It dies. It has babies. Well, it has babies before it dies, or its offspring. Variation in the species. Although they often make round heads, brain corals can form lots of different shapes. Sometimes they look more lumpy or flat. They vary in color from orange to green to purple. Brain corals can turn white because of changes in their environment. This is called bleaching. If the ocean water gets too warm or polluted, it can make the algae leave the brain coral. Once the algae leaves, the brain coral turns white. When a head of a brain coral gets bleached, it's more likely to die. So when it gets bleached, it's most likely to die. So when there's more solid color, that's a better thing, so they can stay alive for that 900 years. And then we're gonna choose one more animal. Okay, so we all come. Sorry, I'm gonna go back. We're all familiar with a dog. So they're a domestic dog. Domestic just means house. So the domestic dogs. These are dogs that they live with us. Dogs have been living with humans for thousands of years. People keep dogs as pets. Dogs also work in farms and help people who are blind. Dogs can eat many different things, including other animals and plants. They have a very good sense of smell. These dogs look very different from each other, but they are all the same species. Because we know about species, all dogs are a type of species, but there's different types of dogs, and they look different, but they're all the same species. Life cycle of a dog. So if someone has a dog, the dog is birthed, it turns a puppy, then it turns to a young dog, then it turns to an adult dog. It reproduces again, which means it has offspring or babies, and then the dog dies, and then it goes over and over. That's the life cycle. Variation of the species. Dogs have a lot of variation in traits like size, fur color, ear shape, and tail length. You may have seen a tiny tan colored pug and big gray Great Dane. These are both the same species, but they have very different traits. Puppy gets genes for traits like color and fur length from their parents. All offspring get different traits from their parent. The dog at the bottom is the offspring of the two dogs at the top. One parent has lots of spots, the other parent has no spots. The offspring have some spots. Its number of spots is a trait that is a mix of both parents' traits. So we have a dog that has no spots, a dog that has spots, and then the baby dog has a little spots because it took a mixture of no spots and a lot of spots and made it have little spots. Same humans brush and cut poodles' hair to make special styles. Poodles inherit instructions for long curly hair, but the hairstyles depends on the humans and the poodle's environment. So all these poodles both probably have the same amount of fur, but someone cut the fur to make it a different style. So people who have poodles, they make their poodles look a certain way. So they might not look so much like their mom or dad because someone cut their hair. So this just a different way from the environment that a poodle can look. So that's the end of this lesson. This is just a review of the things that we've been learning. So on our next lesson, we're going to go to we're going to go to a different unit. We're going to be talking about how things get look different because of their environment or things that they've learned. So, for example, even though your mom or dad might not be great basketball players or jump rope too well, you might be able to jump rope or play basketball well because you've practiced it and you've learned it. So they don't have to be able to do those things for you to learn how. You just have to keep practicing and do those things rather than something like being tall or being short can come from your parents. Those are things you can't change. Like you can't practice being tall or you can't practice being short, but you can practice how to jump rope and you can practice how to play basketball. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the next lesson. Can't wait to see everybody then. All right.